Moana 2 looks to be fixing Disney Animation's recent villain problem. Set a few years after the events of the first Moana movie, the new film will bring back the titular Wayfinder as she embarks on a new quest across the ocean. This is a great chance for the film to expand her universe, bringing back fan favourites while setting up Moana 2's cast of characters to grow in exciting ways. One of the most intriguing of these new characters is Matangi, one of the film's antagonists. Played by Ohwima Fraser, Matangi is set to be one of Disney's only overt villains since 2010's Tangled. For the last 14 years, Disney villains have gone through an interesting and sometimes very compelling direction that has also had the unfortunate side effect of making them less memorable. Even Wish's attempt to course correct with Chris Pine's King Magnifico ultimately didn't work. Here's the key elements that Matangi seems to be bringing to the new Disney sequel that could make her Disney's best villain in over a decade. Moana 2's Matangi is a more structurally compelling villain. As described by Moana 2's directors Jason Hand, Dana Ledoux Miller, and David Derrick Jr., Matangi is poised to serve as a major antagonist of the film. Trailers for the movie have shown her confronting Maui and finding ways to combat him. Promotional images released including the character show her as a surprisingly expressive figure with a somewhat familiar appearance comparable to Moana. This seems to be intentional as Matangi is described by the film's directors as a direct contrast to the Wayfinder. As described by Miller during an interview with Screen Rant, Matangi is a dark contrast to Moana's commitment to exploring the world and connecting people. We started thinking about what was the opposite of connection. It's disconnection. What does it mean to be isolated? It was from there that we really started to think about who the foe would be. This gives Matangi a direct emotional contrast to the heroes, something that should motivate genuine drama as she seeks to halt their mission. It's a great foundation for a villain and something missing from other recent Disney antagonists. Walt Disney Animation has been taking an interesting approach to villains over the last 2 decades. While it brought complexity to the antagonistic characters, it also meant a lack of memorable outright villains for the franchise. 4 movies in a row, Wreck-It Ralph, Frozen, Big Hero 6 and Zootopia featured twist villains who only revealed themselves late in the story. This also meant they didn't get much space to be memorably vile or villainous. Moana and Raya the Last Dragon had antagonists, but specifically sought to give them more complexity. This cost the natural bombastic theatricality of more overt Disney villains. Ralph Breaks the Internet, Frozen 2, Encanto, and Strange World didn't have villains at all, deriving conflict from the main characters. Wish was therefore a welcome return to a villain archetype, the first Disney animated movie since Tangled to have an outright villainous character. However, despite a solid performance from Chris Pine, King Magnifico doesn't get the memorable darkness of the characters like Maleficent or Scar. There's an attempt to give him some depth, but it makes his villainous transformation more abrupt and out of character. Magnifico doesn't feel evil enough to be memorable and was one of Wish's biggest letdowns. There were some cool ideas behind Magnifico in Wish, but his corruption was too abrupt and his connection to Asha was too thematically weak to be compelling. A great antagonist, especially in Disney animated films, has to be a direct contrast to the hero while retaining a unique sense of personal style and personality. The best Disney villains like Maleficent and Gaston benefit from being somewhat one note. This crystallized focus on character gave the creatives room to make sure that one note worked, creating deeply memorable antagonists. By contrast, Magnifico wants to be simultaneously complex and straightforward, and fails at both. That's what makes Matangi such an exciting prospect as a villain in Moana 2. She's designed as a direct foil to the lead character, with no attempt to hide her dark side. This should allow the filmmakers more room to showcase her instead of explaining her, giving her space to make her memorable. Her direct antagonism with Moana will likely set up compelling drama and give her and the audience someone to root against. Sometimes, having a straightforward villain is a good thing, and Moana 2 seems to be heading in that direction.